I swallowed the red pill back in 2008 and began reporting the news in front of a camera in 2019. In that time, we've seen a complete upheaval in world politics. The battle lines have changed between the illusion of left versus right to the reality of globalism versus nationalism. Despite all the information, the truth and the lies, there are two very distinct pathways emerging. Should we follow Labor and Liberal to a dystopic one-world government, or do we fight for our nationalism, unlock our hidden resources wealth and build a new Australia? With the world teetering on a knife's edge, should we solidify our relationship with the USA and become the 51st state? This is my mission statement here on Australian National Review, and I welcome you to Black Pill Me as hard as you can as we determine our future together. This is the 51st state. Welcome everyone to day 2 of the Free Speech Summit at Independent Media Awards. Get it out. We are on day 2, which in 2025 is the length of a cricket test match. So we'll be going in for our second innings today. Thanks everyone for coming. Who was here last night for the awards? Thank you. Did you enjoy them? Yes. Fantastic. I'll tell you what, I'm a little bit annoyed that Michael Gray Griffith didn't walk away with a trophy. But you know, that just means he comes back next year and does it again. And when John Larder said he's done more miles than, I thought he was going to say Slim Dusty. And you know, you think of the work and the commitment and the amount of people that you get to speak to, just doing what we're doing, which more or less is organic, right? We didn't get into it by design. There was no system in place. This just came about by necessity. It's pretty cool, just the same. And I also have to give a very special mention to every single lady that I know, because last night, I mean, I'll just show you. I'm wearing these boots, pretty cool, and they've got nice spongy inner soles, and I wore them all day yesterday fine. And last night with the penguin suit, I wore these expensive Bally shoes, $500 for a pair of shoes, and I wore these things. I put them on. I thought, oh my God, I'm standing on concrete. And I got home last night, and I was in agony. I'm thinking, every lady that's worn high heels, you know, you have my respect. What a wuss I am. You know, we're all men are wusses one way or another. But there you go. Look, I decided to put my mug on camera 6 or 7 years ago at the end of the first term of the Trump presidency, and many of us were expecting what is actually unfolding this weekend as Tulsi Gabbard has dropped the bomb and declassified the Russiagate documents. So the deep state are now in a panic. They know they are gone. And if you have read The Art of War, you don't go to war and hope to win. You set up the win before you go to war. And that's why they know they're gone. And there is going to be a big panic. But 7 years ago, that's what I expected. And we didn't get there. And of course, we had a little bit of egg on our face, but that will come back the other way, and there'll be big fat I told you so's from all of us at some stage, fingers crossed. But I decided to do that mainly because in my career I spent 12 years as a home shopping TV producer, and I landed in that by accident, and it just so happened that I had a sales career and a TV operational career. And my brother rang me up one day and he says, I'm doing your old job in presentation coordinator, which is basically a TV disc jockey. And I was working in sales in the GFC. Interest rates were almost 9%. The bosses all came in off the golf courses and took all the good sales leads, and you were scratching and scraping, trying to make ends meet on a base salary of $500 a week. No way to live when you're trying to support a family, pay a mortgage and all of that stuff. So my brother rang me up, I went into this thing and I thought, wow, this is a whole new world where television, they call it direct response TV. It's live, people watch the telly, and you're in a production room and you can see the phone calls lighting up as you're selling a product. So it's totally interactive. And being only one of 2 non-gay guys in a female industry, no one knew how to sell computers or electrical gear, so I just fell into it. It's pretty cool. And to fast forward, when my wife and I got married, went overseas, and we're in New York, and we walked into Sephora, and she tells the story about how I was talking to the male makeup guy about the benefits of mineral makeup, and she was watching on and she laughs about it, and that's how far I'd come in that industry. So it just shows you can learn about anything, and it was a whole lot of fun. But in home shopping TV, as a producer, you write the plans, you find the products from the buyers, you gather all the information, the clips, etc. You plan everything, and then you even have to talk into the ear of the presenter when they get stuck, because it's all non-scripted. And the outcome is it's measured by results, by sales, etc. And the golden rule is if it's a great show, it was the presenter, and if it was a bad show, it was the producer. And so I like to think of my 12 years as a home shopping producer as 12 years a slave, because you got paid 1/7 of the presenter, but there it was. But the funny thing is that you then learn that you have these great career opportunities and the confidence to do what we do. So we're all, as I said yesterday, we're all autodidacts, all of us self-taught. Now, part of that pain and suffering that we've all gone through is, as I said yesterday, that we've all been hurt or burnt or betrayed, and it's a betrayal of trust by those in authority that means fool me once, shame on you, and George Bush couldn't get it right, and fool me twice, shame on me. And none of us are ever going to be betrayed again. So when that character from SBS rocked up yesterday and I asked you all to raise your hands if you'd been affected, 100% of people were. And he turned his head and walked out of the room. That told me everything I need to know, that we are being mocked as victims who refuse to be victims in a society where sadly our children's generation are being indoctrinated to become victims and financial nihilists. They've given up. And so when Klaus Schwab comes out and tells you you'll own nothing and be happy, those young kids will say things like, well, I'll just spend up and rack up my credit card debt and travel, I don't need to buy a house. I tell you what, when you're approaching retirement age and you've got to pay rent, 20 years ago, $250 a week was a lot of rent. Today it's $750 and you can't even get what you had. How can you hit retirement and expect to survive on a pension when your rent's going to be $1,000 a week? You can't. It's almost like Soylent Green. You're expected to check yourself out in such a system. So the kids don't get it yet. And those that have caused this problem are the same people that they look to solve it. And that doesn't make any sense, but you can't quite explain it. Now, without blowing my own trumpet, it's actually because of my wife. My eldest daughter is one of those kids that very, very smart, got a massive ATAR score, but no matter what I tell her, she has to fall on her face. She has to make the mistake herself. But eventually she gets up and she says, Dad, you're right. And I go, why didn't you do that a year ago? You didn't have to suffer through all this stuff. But this is what the kids have to do. They have to fall on their faces. And what we have to do, obviously we have to pick them up because we love our kids and we love all the kids, warts and all, problems, all the stuff that they come through, even not our own. Because all of us are into child protection. And in a moment I'm going to talk about another little thing. And we realise that us here, the Gen Xers largely, and the Boomers, who populate this room, and the Gen Xers, a real sore spot. Because this is the generation that was the last to do 30 years in the mailroom before we got promoted to parcels. And we never complained. But the kids' generation does 30 minutes and wants to be the CEO. So how do you deal with that? So the thing is that experience is experience because that's what it is, and you can't short circuit that. You can fast track, but you can't short circuit experience, and that teaches you a lot. But if you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, that's not going to work either. But none of us are doing that. We're all trying new things. We are the outcasts in a way. Anyway, when it comes to injury, PTSD, whether we were directly vaccine injured or we knew someone who was or something happened, there is a reason that you become sceptical. Now, my first taste with questioning the big V was when my mother, a nurse, gave me one of the first flu vaccines 25 or 30 years ago, and 3 days later I got the flu for 3 days, and I said, Mum, what a waste of time. Why would I do that? I'll take the flu naturally, I'll stay home, watch movies, drink chicken soup, and have a mental health break and go back to work refreshed. And that was the end of me for that. I just think that concept was ridiculous. And that was the only one, and sceptical from that point on. My mother, at 66, I think I mentioned it, died from heart cancer, and there were 4 triggers. One was a live flu vaccine, high copper, low zinc, root canal therapy. She had all 4. I told her that. She said, there's no such thing as a live flu vaccine. I said, Mum, there has to be, because that's the trigger, and you get a flu vaccine every year as a nurse. And sadly, that's what happened. We found some alternate ideas which worked really well, and that opened up a whole new world to us. And the best part was, on those alternates, she had no side effects from chemo at all, except losing her hair. She got 11 and a half months when the doctors told her she would have 3. And she had this great life, and she fell off the cliff at the end and was very quick to the end, and that was exactly the best possible scenario. But when you start to ask those questions, you realise the level of betrayal, and then you start researching. And we had Steve Kirsch yesterday, 1,700 articles, and a man who had to be literally injured to trigger it. Now, for society and humanity, to have a man of that renown and resource to now cross over the fence and stand up, and I asked him, have you met Bill Gates? Spoken to Bill Gates, RFK Jr., that's a connected man. When I am on the stage talking to a guy like that, I go, we are that close. RFK potentially could be the next president of the United States, just as much as JD Vance. We're talking to the guy that talks to him. I mean, that's pretty cool. So, this morning I was looking at X, as I do, and Craig Kelly had posted a substantial post having a go at Bob Carr, who criticised Craig Kelly whilst congratulating some fellow that won the seat of Hughes for Labor, whatever, wasn't really paying attention. Craig had a go at him. But here's the point I want to make. The vaccine zealots love to move the goalposts. In the 20th century, being an anti-vaxxer meant you were pitied by the rest of society because people considered that your crazy ideas put you at risk, given they had the advantage of being protected. Akin to riding a motorbike without a helmet. That's what anti-vaxxers meant last century. And yet in the 21st century, an anti-vaxxer was to be punished, vilified, shamed for not taking a medical marvel so brilliant, so unquestionable, that if you didn't take it, it meant that mine didn't work. How does that work? Now, people in power who believe that are not fit for the office that they hold. They are pack hunters, they're bullies who maintain their power by stepping on the throats of those who call out their ignorance, which they ought not to have, which to me proves their unfitness for office in the first place. So if you have a belief and you can back it up with argument and fact, 1,700 articles by Steve Kirsch, you stick to it. And there's no shame in being the one guy against the masses. Now, let's look at it quickly from a different perspective. You get a job, you follow the system, and if you're lucky, you pay off your mortgage the day before you retire. That's the system, right? A 30-year mortgage. But isn't entrepreneurship the match-up between risk versus reward? Isn't that what it's all about? That's how you get ahead. You take a risk, a calculated one, and the result is a reward. You buy a property in the right neighbourhood, it goes up faster than something else. You buy shares in a certain company, it goes up quicker than inflation. You buy gold and silver, you hedge against silver and against inflation, and your money's protected. Whereas if you save your money in the bank, the best you're going to get is an interest rate, which less profit means that you can never keep up with inflation. So there's risk versus reward. But the point is that there is risk. and we live in a society that is that risk averse, you can't get ahead by design. You just can't. So you have to break out of that mentality. And the thing is, isn't it funny that when they talk about things like Ponzi schemes, of which there is always one, and real estate in Australia technically is a Ponzi scheme now when you keep bringing in so many people to prop up the system in a per capita recession, by definition it fits the terms of a Ponzi scheme. But they used to say that when the cab driver is telling you about an investment, that's when you get out, not when you get in. And that's the point. Now, here's another one for you, another one of these things. So Clay Higgins, Congressman, said that the Trump administration has rescued 35,000 trafficked children linked to fake sponsor documents provided by NGOs through the HHS, Health and Human Services. He revealed that the rescued children are being interviewed and their testimonies documented to support future prosecutions. According to Higgins, many employees within these NGOs are now facing imminent arrest for their role in child trafficking operations. That is a significant statement. That is a big deal. Now, what do you get today on X? Scroll through. Trump is a PEDO. Trump is a PEDO. That's all you get. The guy that is doing this stuff. And you can question all of this. But here's my question. How come they don't mention Pizzagate? Anyone heard of Pizzagate? Yes. Where did Pizzagate come from? Does anyone remember? Before that, it came from WikiLeaks. The Podesta files. That's what they were. And how it came about was that these people were using a private email server, and it turns out that John Podesta's password was password. And he got hacked. That's how Pizzagate came about. And we all saw the emails, and we all know that WikiLeaks has never been sued for defamation, and obviously Julian Assange served a long time locked up, but had to plead guilty to journalism. So we learnt some crazy stuff. And what really frustrated me back in the day was we thought we were onto something here, and all we want is the truth. All we want is the truth. How dare we ask for the truth, but the truth shall set us free, so it's a great prize. So when Megyn Kelly interviewed James Alefantis on, I think back then on Fox News, the worst softball interview I've ever seen. Now, those of us that had researched this found an article, I believe in Rolling Stone magazine, that said that Alefantis used to can his tomatoes in the basement at Comet Pizza. But they claimed that there was no basement at Comet Pizza because there were photographs of these kill rooms. It's horrific stuff. And all you can do is piece together information to build up a profile, etc., and look for evidence. And it turned out that the son of a CIA operative burst into Comet Pizza one day with a gun and pointed it at a cash register at the front of the building and fired one bullet into it. And he was arrested, and they said he went in there to find out if there was a basement, and there wasn't one. Well, he never even got in to look. The thing was that on the chans, there were these screenshots. Now, you can't prove that it was, but circumstantial evidence, etc., leads inquisitive minds to ask big questions. And what they were seeing was on this particular computer was a second menu of very horrible things that could be purchased. So this guy went in there, technically, to shoot up the hard drive and destroy the evidence. That's the working theory. Now, when I have interviewed military, police, like detectives, etc., over and over again, I asked them a very simple question. What is the difference between a conspiracy theory and military or police intelligence? And they go, nothing, it's exactly the same thing. You follow information, you look for trails and patterns, etc., and you start researching for evidence. We have disruptors in every industry in the world now. Every industry has a disruptor. And the media, obviously, which is where citizen journalism came from. So this is a big deal. And autodidacts are self-taught. And now, with the advantage of artificial intelligence used the right way, not to do your work for you, but if you act like I said to Steve Kirsch yesterday, if you're a CEO of a company and you employ hundreds, if not thousands of people, you can't possibly know everything that your staff know. That's why you have staff. You can't do all that work. But a good leader has the right people that they trust to get the right answers. And technically, AI makes you the CEO of you, chief executive of yourself, if you can search for the right information. So what's going to happen with this AI world is that you're going to be dividing the species yet again between those that will use it to write their university papers and not learn anything, to those that are going to be at this end who are going to use it to advance like Steve Kirsch does. Now, I interviewed John Eastman the other day on the 51st state. John Eastman was the constitutional lawyer that Donald Trump asked to look into the 2020 election results and whether or not they should certify. John Eastman was the same man that spoke to Mike Pence and explained on January 6, you do not need to certify, to which he did. And of course, we all know what happened on January 6 at that point, and that was that outcome. I asked John about AI, and he said, he was talking about birthright citizenship in the US, which is a big deal. Because if you are an illegal immigrant and you come in and your child is born there, according to the Constitution and the Democrats, you then have a birthright. And John argues that you don't. And he said, I looked up on Grok for the case law. And it came out with a case that he said I'd never heard of. So I looked into it and I read it. And I went back to Grok and I said, actually, you're wrong. This doesn't apply at all to what you're saying. And then he applied some other information, and Grok came back and said, you're right, I'm wrong, and corrected itself. And so a constitutional lawyer is having a conversation with a computer program and correcting it. And that's what Steve Kirsch said to us yesterday. If a person doesn't believe what you're saying, they put up a brick wall, but the AI actually agrees with you when you prove it wrong. That's actual debate. But it's also very scary because there are people having relationships with AIs now. Like, seriously. Now, what happens when a 33-year-old wannabe CEO goes and gets an AI chip in his head or her head to get the promotion to prove that they're the smartest person in the room? What happens when that AI in the head and that person are having a conversation with itself and you're getting two things? At what point, when you go down that scale from intelligent person seeking advantage to moderate person to low-level person cheating the system, and the AI, and the human being becomes subservient to the AI in its head? You cannot possibly be a human being at that point. It's over for that. For the human species is now split at that point. They're not humans anymore, they're something else. Biological robots, something else. So this is a big conversation that needs to be had, and when you talk to these people, they're telling us, and Elon Musk said, I went to Congress and said, we need to have this conversation now, we're not having it. And he said they weren't interested. There is a massive rush. Now, let me go way out there. I'm watching a video the other day from Michael Salla. Anyone know who Michael Salla is? So he's the exopolitician, let's say. Exopolitics is the politics of off-Earth. Imagine being an intellectual professor and you're already thinking about the politics of what happens off Earth as we go out into the galaxy. It's incredible, right? We've been told that there's nothing out there, and then we all know that just the laws of probability says there has to be something. So when you think Dave Grush, the whistleblower, gave testimony to which Eric Burleson, a congressman, said that Trump had been briefed on 2 species of off-planet intelligence in his first term, and has been told that the human species is too primitive to be able to know what could be out there in the future, or sorry, out there in terms of other species, we're not ready. And the idea was that one species was 300 years ahead of us and looked like us from another planet system, and another one was thousands of years ahead, way ahead of us. So my question is there enough knowledge in the circles of power that are now tempted to look into this area, and that is why AI is being rushed so fast, because it's the only way that we can technically catch up our intelligence one way or another? It's a question that I have. Now, there'll be people who will mock me for daring thinking about that, but how can inquisitiveness be usurped by ignorance. It's ridiculous. So I make no apologies for thinking, and I hope that all of us can continue to think and have these discussions. So what I really wanted to talk to you about today was what we need to do from now on. 5 years and 2 terms as third-party voters, more or less, in a system where globalists versus nationalists, left versus right doesn't really mean anything. Gerard Rennick told you last night, it's a centrist thing anyway. And it's about solutions. Solutions. How do we protect ourselves? Like we heard yesterday in WA, there is now a law that says if there's another pandemic, someone can walk into your house, take your clothes off and inject you. Who, anyone, could honestly think that that is acceptable? That someone you don't know can invade your own body to inject you because they know better than you. So my attitude is this: if Roger Cook or Scott Morrison or Anthony Albanese or Jacinda Ardern or any of those people want to be my father or my mother, take my birth certificate and put your name on the bloody thing. Because you're not my parent, and if you are, you can look after me, you can feed me, and you can leave me an inheritance when you die. You're not my parent. I think that is an absolute disgrace that they could even think that they would do that. But that's where we're at. How can you be such a zealot that you know everything and when challenged you completely shut up? So what are we going to do? Independent media is where we're at. And as you could tell yesterday, we're not all the same. And we have very different approaches. And we are getting better every single day. And we are getting interviews with some very, very big people, very important people who want to speak to us. As political candidates, we can't run 3 or 4 minor party candidates per seat. It just doesn't work. The preferential system is not supported, even though Topher's Marvel's video made sense. That's not the way they count the votes. And at the end of the day, if you can't get 18% first preference for a particular person, you just can't get over the line. You can't win on 14. You can probably win on 18 if you have the right circumstances. Get there as your bare minimum. So we need to streamline that process. And everyone says we've got to get together. But here's an interesting one for you, just a very simple reason why it doesn't work. The libertarians completely believe in free trade, etc. So they have no problem, technically, in selling your infrastructure to China or Iran. That's allowable. Whereas Gerard Rennick will say to you that he believes that we should have some level of protection, which means we're not going to do that in a Gerard Rennick system. So how do you bring these two parties together on something like that? Or do you consolidate on the 25 things that you agree on and you leave these things in the fringes for a later date? That's another way to do it. But how do you put all of those egos in a room, all of whom are fighting for the right to take a seat in Parliament to represent at least 150,000 people or 100,000 people? That's a big deal. So you're dealing with, and we all know that politics is a blood sport, right? We know that this is a game that they will do anything to take you out if you're your enemy, and even your own party would do it to you. And having been someone that came from the ALP back in the day, man, they did it to me running at myself, my own friends. That's how savage it is. But what I'd like to do, before I go back to this concept, I'm going to get Joel to run your video because this is an important thing. And this is what my problem is at the moment. This video is from a TV series called The West Wing. Has anyone seen it? Yes. To paint a picture for you, people ask where you were when the moon landing, JFK was killed, and 9/11. On 9/11, I was watching The West Wing. It finished. Jim Whaley came on Nightline, and he showed you the first tower getting hit. That's The West Wing. I'm going to play from this. I just want you to have a look at it. Let's play that clip for you now.
The nurse makes $31. Miss Mueller gets paid an additional $200 a year to conduct the choir and band, while Mr. Ryan gets paid an additional $400 a year to coach the rowing team.
Crew.
What?
It's not rowing, it's crew. If Florence Chadwick is a married woman with no dependents and Mr. Hopkins has a family of 4 to support.
If we paid people according to how many children they had to support, then Malcolm Bunny, the groundskeeper, would get triple what the headmaster gets.
Mrs. Lanningham.
You know I'm right.
Look,
you know I'm right. You've known it since I brought it up. You've known it since before that.
What do you want me to do about it?
I want you to bring it up with your father.
See, I'm not a woman and I don't work here.
The women who do are afraid for their jobs. If they bring it up, they're afraid for their jobs. What is it you're afraid of?
Why do you talk to me like this?
Because you never had a big sister and you need one. Look at you. You're a boy king. You're a foot smarter than the smartest kids in the class. You're blessed with inspiration. You must know this by now. You must have sensed it. Look. If you think we're wrong, if you think Mr. Hopkins should honestly get paid more than Mrs. Chadwick, then I respect that. But if you think we're right, and you won't speak up because you can't be bothered, then God, Jed, I don't even want to know you. Come inside. I'll call AAA.
Miss Mueller gets half as much to teach music as Mr. Ryan gets to coach crew.
You're gonna do it.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Yes, you did.
When?
Just then. You stuck your hands in your pockets, you looked away and smiled. That means you made up your mind.
That doesn't mean anything.
Oh, yes, it does.
I stuck my hands in my pockets.
And looked away and smiled. We're in.
That's Jed Bartlett, and that was Mrs. Lanningham. And I tell you what, I'm not an idealist. That's a nonsense. I'm a 51-49er, but I am a political romantic. And that's what it's meant to be. That is what it's meant to be. And unfortunately, it's Francis Underwood in House of Cards, Kevin Spacey. That's the reality. So how do we go from that to that? I don't know if we're going to do it politically just yet, so we have to do it another way. If we can credential our media and defeat the misinformation bills that are ever thrown back at us, and we're on a level playing field that excludes mainstream media and government, if we can primary our candidates and fund them and put one good one per seat of any party who can work together in an informal coalition until we can partner with one of the 2 majors in the coalition, National Party, perhaps. If we can streamline the law using artificial intelligence to our advantage, autodidacts, if we can restore the medical second opinion through our doctors and let them have the ability to be doctors again, and if we can protect 2 million Australian people who do not want to be taken over by mandates, we have something very powerful. Now, in a little while, John Wilson will be here to talk about the Freedom Union. And for the first time in a very long time, the U word is not a dirty word, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I don't know if John's got all the answers. And I tell you what, there's another John in the room, John Larder, who is the president of the Aligned Council of Australia, that has got a lot of very interested characters. So, if you are no longer one, but you are one of 1 or 2 million, would you feel confident that we can change things even if we don't have any power in Parliament? Who thinks that that might work? So do I. And it's using the system that they created that is not working for them because of one serious problem. The same problem. It's corrupt. And corruption kills everything. And the only thing that beats corruption is transparency. And when you think if AI and digital ID and CBDCs and all this stuff is designed to corral and to cull us at the end of the day, because if you don't believe we're being culled at this point, well, look at climate change, for goodness sake. Everything is telling us that there's too many people and we've got to consume less. And the only way you do that is by having less people. Everything else is pretend. We can't all sit there in the cold. We can't all not eat. We can't all not live. We can't have a declining quality of life. We've got to do something different. And therein lies where we are headed. Strength in numbers is how it works through an informal political approach But when you think about the ALP, that whole thing is run by that ACTU, the Australian Council of Trade Unions, of which there are hundreds. So I'll park that thought for a moment, and I notice that some of our speakers are a little bit late, so I'm indulging myself in the moment. I'm going to talk to you about something else right now. A question. Why do the globalist lefties run the Australian Republican movement? How can you be a globalist and also want to be a republic? It doesn't make any sense. How can King Charles, the head of the Commonwealth, attend World Economic Forum meetings? How does that work? How can you be representing one thing but working for another? How can you be a servant to two masters? And he's the king and we have that Union Jack on our flag. So my question is, why do us non-globalist supporters support a monarchy whose king is a globalist? Yeah. We've hit a ceiling. Now, I've got a friend in the room that I know is a monarchist, and I also know he's a very, very smart person, and I can't wait for the debate. And again, that's why we're here. So I asked Craig Kelly this same question, and he said, we just haven't come up with a better model yet. And Mrs. Lanningham just told Jed Bartlett, if you can't come up with it, well, if you have an answer, I respect it, but if you don't want to talk about it, I don't want to know you. And that's the point. We need to have the debate and the discussion, and the nationalists need to be running the Republican movement when the monarchy has failed us and is delivering us down a pathway we don't want to go. And I'll tell you what, I am a cricket tragic. I think it's the greatest game ever because it is a test of this, as a test of your skill, and a 5-day cricket match, for those that love it, is the best 5 days of your life, and for everyone else it's torture. But I tell you what, when you're a short, fat guy with glasses facing a 6'6" fast bowler and you hit the ball back over his head, as a human being, that is a great result. And it is physical, absolute strength, the whole purpose of having a body in the first place. So it's this mind game. I think it was 1985, and Dean Jones scored 210 runs against India in 45-degree heat and lost 11 kilos during that innings. And he was throwing up on the field, it was all recorded on video, and he wanted to come off, and he came off halfway, and Alan Border, the toughest cricketer in Australian history, came down from the dressing room, got to the fence and said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm coming off, I'm sick, I'm throwing up." He said, "If you come off, you're not a bloody Australian, get back out there." And that's what you did in the 80s. And he did. And he scored 210, his highest score, and they went on, and I believe that was the tied test. And that's what you did when you represented your country. And I'll tell you what, every one of us here is a child of the 80s. Well, in 99% of cases. And we know what it was like to be a tough, resilient Australian. And guess what? We're all here. We're all healthy. We're all thriving, more or less. And as autodidacts and people who have PTSD from being trust betrayed, we're still here. And we're all meant to be dead. And we're all meant to not receive Medicare, according to, I think Bob Carr didn't want us to have Medicare if we didn't take the jab. If you don't take this to protect you, which is to protect me, we're not going to give you health care. What kind of human being who served as Premier of New South Wales for 10 years would dare say that in the era of DEI? Well, there you go. And many of them aren't. It's a fascinating scenario that we are in today, but we are incredibly much better off than we thought we might be. All we are in need of is one spark, and we haven't even talked about the possibilities of what is coming. And when you embrace your weakness as your strength, AI can be a massive weakness, but it can be a massive strength. Just like nuclear power in the modern era is completely the opposite of what it used to be. Completely the opposite. And when you start listening to some very clever people who are going to emerge around the traps and the inventions that they have, all of that climate change stuff goes away the moment we embrace modern nuclear in the ways that we can use it. And so any society that improves, increases, always it's a direct result of the increase in energy, and the deindustrialisation age of green power, wind and solar, is actually doing this. So in the political pendulum, and it always swings, it will get to a point where the people will reject it. And the race is on before we're allowed to reject it. And that's where we are today. So it is a race, but we are in the most unique situation in the world. The establishment is rocked to its core, and the man in the White House, despite all of the shenanigans and the Epstein stuff, that is a fox. He is foxing to get everyone onto it. That's what he does. And we know it by what we just learned about there, 35,000 kids who are giving evidence, and they're going to bring down some people. So on that note, I hope that I've planted enough seeds for people to think that there are solutions, there is real hope, and we're not leaving this planet, this world, our existence, without leaving it better for our children, because that's what we were born to do, and that is our only failure if we don't leave the world a better place. And those that think they run it, who are running it into the ground, are not doing it. So our best days are ahead of us, and that's what's exciting. I tell you what, these days you're allowed to be 80 and be the leader of a planet, leader of a country, I should say, and that's the point. So all of you are still on your training wheels, and all of you can become politicians if you wanted to, and all of you can be involved. Don't think you're ever too old to do anything anymore. 80 is the new 50, let me tell you that. So be encouraged, be energised. Now, if the young kids are out there running all this lefty stuff and handing out, we can do the same thing. We all know we need to exercise, and we all know it's hard work, but you know what? We all love talking to people, and we all love meeting new people. Some will like, some will won't, and that's the way we can have to just do what we need to do. It's exciting. So, hard work never killed anyone, but no work, well, that can get you in a lot of trouble. On that note, I would like to thank